Excellent, so that's started now.
Well, they went through the whole year.
Okay, shall we? I hope everybody's been able to get some refreshments and stretch legs as appropriately. And if I may just call people to the table. I apologise for the delay in starting Council of Governors, particularly to those colleagues who I know had come for the 3:30 start. It reflects two things, probably my uselessness at times. Fair enough, it'll be added on to me, the bad things, the 30 minutes there. No, it's actually about 20, isn't it? Let's call it 20. But also, honestly, for executive colleagues joining us and guests, of course, it reflects a really rich discussion that we've just had between governors and non-executive directors. It's a closed session in which we can just open up about the particular statutory roles that we have and just share some information as best we can. With a really good discussion. There were just a couple of small things that arose where executive support would be appreciated. And so when the time is right, when we get to item 6, I'll just ask for a couple of bits of support from colleagues, Sarge and Pat, in relation to the questions raised. But it was a really rich discussion, genuinely. We're starting the meeting proper. Welcome everybody to our Council of Governors meeting. Warm welcome to all. As chair, I'm conscious, of course, that we have a guest, and so I'm going to suggest that we go directly to Helen, and I'll describe who Helen is in a moment. But as we start this meeting, let me just firstly commend two of our executive directors for sessions that they ran for the benefit of briefing governors, and indeed non-exec directors were often there as well. So on the 12th of this month, our Chief Operating Officer, Sarge, spent what was a 20-minute ask from Max and went to about 50 maybe, something like that. So Sarge gave a Teams briefing on performance issues, and it was extremely well received. We were hearing it from our Chief Operating Officer. It was not reflective of any particular concerns on the part of governors, other than just wanting to truly understand what the current winter pressures were. It was a really good briefing, and so Sarge and team, thank you very much from me as chair, and I know that governors were present did very much enjoy that. And then just indeed this week, on Tuesday, Karen Dorber deserves a comment, and the team indeed around Karen, for the session that they ran with governors. And I can see some nods, and I know plenty here were present at that meeting. And that was great, because that again demonstrated our faithfulness to the duties of candour and honesty about some of the challenges. And what the questions that had arisen in governors was, when you get something that might have gone wrong, or some sort of maybe something that is considered a serious incident, etc., how do you assure yourselves? How do you assure yourselves that you're identifying those properly, that how you manage them, the timeliness by which they're done, etc. And it had arisen from a discussion about our desire, our genuine desire to be an outstanding maternity service. And we recognise that in board reporting, properly, there are some issues that are sometimes raised with us where things haven't quite gone as we might have hoped. And so it was just about that, not in terms of performance, but obviously in outcomes for some people who receive our care. And so it was Karen who said, well, look, rather than do a briefing, shall I set up a bit of a meeting? We'll get people face to face and talk about it. And I know that it went down extremely well. That's a good hour and a half, wasn't it, that we spoke? And with all the senior colleagues of the members of the maternity team there, it wasn't a session on maternity, it was about how do you identify risk and how do you deal with it. And I know plenty of non-executive colleagues that were there as well. So we're at Open Council of Governors, an open meeting, and I did want to just commend our two executive colleagues and the teams around them for that. Thank you very much. Can I just mention quickly as well that a non-executive director, Janet Hurst from Leeds Medical School, it was her last board meeting. She was there on Tuesday with us, of course, and we've said before in the closed session Janet's contribution And I do know, Ray, I have shared no names, of course, but I do know that a nomination has been received. And I said that in the first place, we ask our Chief Medical Officer to have a chat with that individual and just see whether we think that's a good fit for what we need. And so we're on with that now. So hopefully we will have a replacement for Janet very soon. So they were the two kind of key messages I just wanted to give, a comment to those executive officers and to reflect on Janet's contribution. So thanks very much. We note apologies from Khalid and from Heather as governors, and from Sugra and Barry and as non-exec directors, and indeed now from John Prasher, who was with us in the closed session there, but John has other commitments there as well. And I know 2 or 3 of you have mentioned to me that you do need to be away either promptly on time around 5:30, although we're going to have a short closed meeting, or in some other cases just a little bit before due to some personal commitments that are required. That's accepted, and it's my appreciation that you are here when you may have other commitments you're having to manage throughout the day. So thank you to everybody for that. Okay. Shall we, before we do anything else, shall we just pay courtesy to our guest, who is our local Health Watch manager, a hugely important role within the Health and Care Partnership, genuinely. Helen Rushworth joins us, very experienced in this area, and I know is passionate about the community voice. And what I can share with you, and Julie and Mel will know this well, is that Helen and the work she does is extremely influential in the overall partnership work, because we're committed to listening to people and acting upon what we hear. We are committed to that, not just as a trust, but as a bigger partnership. Now, Helen's going to tell us a bit about her work with Health Watch, and to tell us about the Citizens Forum, which I would commend to governors as a brilliant idea, and one that we might, of course, want to engage with in some way, or at least get to know about how it's working and how it's shaping the work we do. So, without saying anything else, I'll make sure that nobody's saying I need to just say something, Max. Shall we begin by thanking Helen? And sorry you've had to wait a little there, Helen, but the time is yours, and we are keen to hear from you, keen to know about this work that we support and have passed to you. And we do have a microphone if you do need one, Helen, but I'll let you decide as to that.
I'll let you decide. Can people hear me? Excellent, thank you. I'm going to stay sat down if that's all right, because it's quite an intimidating room at the best of times, but there's a lot of familiar, friendly faces. So thank you for the invitation and the chance to come and speak to you. I know you've all had the papers in advance and you've got handouts on the tables and things, so I'm not going to go through every single slide because you can all read. I'd like to just pick out some points that I think you may not know about, or something that would maybe illustrate a little bit more about what we do and create some discussion. And I'm more than happy to take questions either as I speak or afterwards. It's totally up to you guys. If you want to say something, just stick your hand up. So yeah, so Health Watch Bradford and District. So thanks Jackie, your local health and care champion. There you go. Thanks Jackie. So we work throughout the health and care sector. I'll be honest and say the majority of our work tends to be focused around health more than care. I think that's historical, and I think that's because people who use health services will often have more to say than people who use care services. And in terms of our influence, when you're talking about statutory services, I'm very aware that there is potentially more opportunity for impact than working with some of the private providers, which often we'll find within the care sector. Thank you. So we're independent and work very closely with, say, decision makers, leaders, local authorities, say private providers, anyone who's providing that service. And it's our role to hear what people are saying, to hear what's going on, and to feed that back I hope, in a constructive and productive manner. Some health watches up and down the country, and I think some of my predecessors potentially, work where Health Watch can be seen as a little bit of a dark cloud. Oh my goodness, Health Watch here, what are we going to say? What are Health Watch going to say? And I really don't see us like that at all. And I would really, and Mel's smiling, and I would really hope that Mel would back me in this, and Karen, in that I see our role very much as support and challenge. And it's as much about support as it is about challenge. And if you guys have got a, a tough decision to make, or something's changing, involve us in it. Let us be part of consultations. Let us hear why you're having to do something. And then we can, with all the independence and the integrity that we can muster, I can go out there and say, we've been involved in this, and whilst it might not be something that the public like, it had to be done, and it's been done for the right reasons, and it's been done honestly, and it's been done transparently, and we can add that support to some of those really tough decisions that you have to make. Currently, we've been commissioned by yourselves to do some work around the VRI rollout. So we've been the independent organisation that has spoken to people around VRI, what that means, what would a virtual appointment look like, what would a good VRI service feel like, what would the experience be, and what would the challenges be. And we've had that extended. Terry asked us to keep it over a little bit longer, the survey. So we're going to be reporting back, I believe, at the end of next month on our findings from VRI. And I would really hope that will be used in an effective way. I'm really proud to say, and really pleased and relieved, I guess, to say that all my workings with yourselves, I genuinely feel that people around this table and running the hospital really do believe in the patient voice. You do. Some organisations may get Healthwatch involved because they think it's the right thing to do, or it's because they've got to do it. We'll have them around the table, then we can say we've consulted. That isn't the case with BTHFT. It really isn't. You want to hear and you want to do it right, and that's that's a relationship that I'm really proud of, and continuing. You work really hard to nurture and grow. Thanks. And again, Jackie. So a little bit about this is from our not last year's annual report, the last one that we wrote. So 450 people who contacted us in a variety of ways to share their experience. Thanks. And then 188 people coming to us for advice. So we'll offer a signposting service as well. And it won't surprise you, I'm sure, at the moment to hear that the number one thing that people contact us about is, anybody guess?
Waiting.
Nope. Well, waiting. GP services, access to GPs. That's number one, followed very, very closely and shockingly around dental, access to dental services, which is absolutely criminal, not far off anyway. We're a tiny team, there's only 4 of us, so myself and 3 others. I have a comms officer in the team who's fantastic, and we reach out in a variety of ways, and Jackie said that she sees our newsletter, so it's nice to know that people actually do read it. Again, Jackie. And then the network of health watches across the country supported, there you go, nearly 1 million people. So we are a network, and over this kind of umbrella organisation is Healthwatch England, and they are a very, very powerful voice at government level in terms of influencing decisions. Next one, please, Jackie. And there we go. So commissioned by the local authority with a huge budget of 180 grand. Look at that. I don't know how we manage to do as much as we do, but we do. Move on, Jackie, please. And this is how people can contact us. So via the website, and again, and then we have a helpline, emails, and then we go out and about and see people, where they are as much as we possibly can. And then something that my colleague here just said he didn't know that we did. So we can visit health and social care providers and go in, and we don't inspect, but we have a legal right to enter, and it's called Enter and View, Jackie. And we can go into care homes, we can go onto wards, and we ask people about that, I guess, the softer stuff, but the stuff that really does make a difference to your experience and your care. So it could be somebody who says, I've been on this ward for 3 weeks, and there's been some blood on those curtains and they've never been cleaned, or the food's shocking, or whatever it might be. Or we do Enter and Views quite often in care homes, and that's really fascinating when people can come in and speak to somebody independent. And we run the Enter and Views with our Healthwatch volunteers who go out and do those. So it's very much, members of the public with, without access to Grind or anything like that, just going out and finding out exactly what's going on. Thanks, Jackie. And that's what we do. So we make reports, recommendations, and speak directly with those who have the power to make changes. And as I say, it's my job to speak truth to power. And I don't have to be anybody's friend, which is always really, really good. It's a good position to be in. Thank you. And again, I think that's it. And no, it isn't. Yeah, so this is where we are in the middle of that. So the organisations that we work with, and I guess a particular interest is that we the health watchers across West Yorkshire have a seat on the Integrated Care Board. So we're influential in that new organisation within the local authority, and as well as the more traditional health providers. And then, very proud to be part of the Actors One partnership as well. Some of the work we've done over the last year, so a report on sexual health services, looking at vaccines, some general insight work. Thanks, Jackie. And then what happens to what people tell us. This is where I take it, and this is what I do. Next one. So I sit on the Health and Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee within the local authority. I sit on the Wellbeing Board, on the Quality Committee, which I should be at now, but I'm here instead. And I sit on the Quality Committee both in Bradford and the West Yorkshire one as well for the system, the Adult Safeguarding Board, the Bradford District and Craven Partnership Board, and then I also chair the Citizens Forum, which I've been asked to speak about a little bit as well, to tell you more about that. And that's it really. So any questions on Health Watch generally before I move on to Citizens Forum?
Thanks, Emma. Yeah. Is there anything on Health Watch itself? And obviously, Ella's going to take us into the Citizens Forum work. So, Alex, please do come in. Yeah.
Hello, hi, I'm Alex. I'm the governor and I work in school. I'm a primary school teacher.
Okay.
Just a question. I've seen on the board that you do work with the local authority.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that, in particular, parents of the children who have different needs and who are accessing the health services, how do you know about you?
Okay.
How do you share that information so they know how to find you?
Yeah, so we're lots of answers to that. So we work with lots of different groups. So, for example, we work with Carers Resource quite closely.
Yeah.
So parents who have got children with some additional needs, whether physical or learning disabilities. So we work with those organisations. We work with a lot of, if I use the phrase, disease-specific organisations. So I've been with Diabetes UK this week, talking about the work that they're doing. So we try and share comms from those organisations, but also if I'm in a meeting where I think that the parent's voice isn't being heard, or more to the point, the child's voice, that's where I will say, well, hang on a minute, how do we know this? Where's the information come from? Is there a wide enough breadth? What more can we do? How can we hear things better? So, yeah, a load of answers. And we've got posters and flyers in doctors and dentists and hospitals. So hopefully people can pick things up there.
Does that help, Alex?
Yes.
Great, yeah. And Dermot, please.
Just very briefly, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, I don't think you did, but I get a monthly newsletter.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we can all subscribe to that if you want to know a bit more. I think that's worthwhile doing.
Yeah.
Often in your mailbox about the 20th or so. So loads of information, all the stuff you're seeing on the slides, we'll get on a regular basis.
Yeah. And I want to go to BCB Radio once a month as well. I do a Monday slot there. So if there's ever anything that, and I work really closely with Shaki and the comms team, but if there's ever anything that needs to be shared, on behalf of the organisation that I can go and speak to on the radio, I'm more than happy to do that as well. And the VRI work I shared widely on the radio and ask people to, express their opinion and their views.
Is that a local Bradford base?
Yeah, Bradford Community
newsletter?
Broadcasting.
Yes. I don't
Yeah.
think I'd seen that, so maybe our governors would like to receive that. However, I mean, what's the easiest way to sign up to that, Helen?
Healthwatchbradford.co.uk.
Yeah.
Just go on the website and you'll see it there.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
if anybody ever wanted to come and speak about, if you wanted new governors or something, I'm more than happy for, I'd love someone to come with me and take some of the radio time on one Monday a month. I get about 15 minutes and it can, yeah.
Thank you, enough. Kirsch, please. Yeah.
My name's Kirsch. I forgot who I am. I'm the governor for Bradford East. You know what, I'm actually, so I'm getting used to it again. My question is on impartiality. You say that you're independent, but how do you keep that independence when you get funded by, say, the NHS for a new piece of work?
Okay.
How impartial can you be?
Yeah. So our primary funding comes from the local authorities, from central government funded down. But as you say, quite rightly, you know, we get commissioned to do particular pieces of work. The reason we are commissioned to do those pieces of work, I would hope, is because we are impartial. And that is when we take a piece of work on, I'm always incredibly clear that, you know, if you are paying us to do this, you're getting it. You're getting it warts and all. We're not here to do a fluff piece, you know, and to flower things up. So it's usually, as I say, when Health Watch are called in, it's because there's something that's, I say, a change or a challenge, and people want, you know, the real nitty-gritty stuff. Otherwise, there's no point. So I hear you, and it's something that we talk about as a team, you know, an awful lot. And the Health Watches all across West Yorkshire, we speak about that because it's, and Jackie and I had this conversation just before I came down. You know, some Health Watches, some of my colleagues may say that, you know, well, you know, you're too friendly with Mel and Karen. You know, they're the baddies. They're on the other side. But you know, I just don't see it like that at all. I see it very much as a partnership, and that's the best way to influence change, isn't it? If we're together.
No, I understand that totally. It's the perception out in the community though is totally different. So Health Watch is perceived how I'm working within the community. So coming back from a community perspective, the perception out there about Health Watch is totally different.
Okay.
Is that you're being paid by the NHS, you know, and how can you be people that are going to scrutinise or ask questions that are really important. So that's the perception out there, and I think that might be
Right. That, yeah, absolutely.
Conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to because that's, you know, that's a challenge, and that's something that it's a concern. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, that's a fair challenge.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely,
you.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready to hear about Citizens Forum? Yeah, and the work that's being done there that Helen is leading on. So
Yeah.
Great, Helen. Thank you.
Do you know what? I'm not going to go talk through the slides, Jackie. So I think it's easier just to talk it. So within the Bradford District Care Partnership, the new partnership board, there's a number of subcommittees, and one of them is the Citizens Forum. And the Citizens Forum is there to, surprisingly enough, have the voice of people, you know, to be heard and central. It is part of the governance structure, so you know we report in, you know, in a formal way. And having said that, what we're trying to do at the Citizens Forum is to do things a little bit differently and maybe a little bit more funky than some of the more traditional boards where everyone sits around a square table like this. And so we run it with a steering group of organisations, made up of organisations representing the big health players in the district, of which Karen Bentley from BTHSC has a seat on there and is really active. And what we do is we try really hard to work very collaboratively to share intelligence. There's a lot of organisations out there, Health Watch being one of them, that hears the public voice. And I could sit here for the next 10 minutes and just, you know, list other organisations that hear the public voice. But historically, I think people can be a little bit protective of their information, and we're trying very hard to move away from that, to create an environment where we trust what other people are doing out in the community and sharing that. What is the point in Health Watch doing a piece of work on, I don't know, strokes, if Hale have just been out and done something on strokes the previous month? Hale's probably not a good example because they're amazing at sharing their stuff and we work really closely, but you get the idea. So we're trying to work, as I say, in this collaborative way, finding out what's happening, sharing information. It goes onto a big database called the Experience of Care Report, which is something that used to be called Grassroots, that the CCG ran, and lots of organisations feed into that. It's the role of the steering group and myself as chair of that to encourage everybody to start putting the information into that Experience of Care report, because that's what we can interrogate to find out what is actually happening. And that Experience of Care could be everything from there was blood on the curtains to, you know, my care was spectacular, or a serious incident, you know, where you need a big case review or something. It's everything. The way so that's one way that we're hearing what's going on with people. The big thing, the new thing we're doing is something called listening. And there used to be something in Bradford called the Bradford Chat, and it's following on from that. So what we're doing is 6 times a year, a wider smattering of us as possible are going out into communities, into one of the localities that make up the district, and meeting people where they are, where they live, where they play, where they learn, where they go to the doctors, the community centres that they use, and finding out what's happening to them, what's working, what would good look like, what isn't working, what's good about the care you receive, and getting ideas of how it could be better. So we did our first one in Craven, and we're only on our second one, which was in Bradford South. Yeah, so we were kind of Byerley, Queensbury, that part of the district. Max and I went to a community centre in Byerley, and Max had a really useful conversation. I know Max did around some real specifics around some care that somebody had or hadn't received from BTHFT. I spoke to some of the staff who were in the community centre around those services being delivered in the community, and that got me thinking around, we've got an issue with GP access. Well, hang on a minute, do we take practice nurses and do blood pressure checks in community centres, in the warm spaces that are being created at the moment? So it's fascinating in terms of hearing what is working for people, what isn't working. It's not a moaning session, but obviously people do have things to say. What we've tried to do is focus very much on what would good look like. And that's where we can potentially make some of those tweaks where the people who use the services can come up with something that we could have sat for a year and never thought about. It could just be that, you know what, when I went to so-and-so, if you'd have done this, and it's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And we can feed that back to the partnership board, and then feed it back to those individual organisations as well, where it's where they're mentioned. A brief example of how things can work. On the first one we did, when we went to Craven, somebody spoke to a colleague, a young person's group, around the toilets at Airedale not being a gender neutral space. That was fed back, and within 2 weeks, some toilets had been found and converted with just something simple as changing the signage, and there was that safe space. So we can make those differences really, really quickly. Some of it we may never be able to do because it's funding related and all those other things where we have our hands tied behind our backs. But listening, it's the way we're hearing at the moment from people. If any of you would like to come out when we're doing the listening events, we would absolutely love that. The dates are shared. Mel has them all, so I don't know if Mel can share them when we know when they're going to be. So the next one in February is over. It's over Valentine's week, that week. But it fell on half term, so we've split it. We've got kind of the back end of the week before, and then we've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then Monday, Tuesday. So if people want to come and join us, and we're in Keighley for that one, and we'll be in a really wide range of organisations. Hear what's happening, hear it for yourselves. And I always think, certainly in my job and for you guys as well, when you look somebody in the eye and they tell you their story, and they tell you their story with tears in their eyes, or they tell you their story with a big grin, that's when you feel it, isn't it? I can share stories, I can give you case studies, but hearing it from people directly, that's the good stuff, that's the really big stuff.
Brilliant.
Any
Thank you
questions?
very much indeed. Thank you. So, we're lucky to have Helen, and also secondly, how important is her job? We've promised, haven't we, that people will be in control of their health and well-being, and that's the way we do it, by listening and making sure we're adapting. Are there any particular questions or queries? That was a terrific briefing, obviously, to Helen Drone, and some great insights, actually, as to the way in which, should governors want particularly to be engaged, then you can. Are there any questions or queries that might arise? Mel's input? Of course, yeah, please.
Just taking on board what Kirst said earlier, I wonder, do you feed back to people that have taken an action?
Yeah.
So they do nervous.
Yeah, that closing the circle and all that. Yeah, we do wherever we can. I mean, it's a constant frustration because, as you guys know, somebody could express, a concern or suggest a change, and that there's every chance it will happen, but it could be 2 years away. It could be another budget year. So it's that thing of managing expectations, which is always difficult. All I can say to people who share their experiences and their stories with us is that they have, my word, our word, that it will be fed back in a transparent, honest way. What happens there? When the toilet example I gave you, that was a really easy one to feed back to people. Some of it is more challenging. and I accept that challenge, and we do try really hard. And in our annual report, we try and have a "you said we did." You said they did. And that's something that we're trying to incorporate more at the moment as well. We're doing a piece of work very soon around GP access, and we're actually taking people out and doing some video work. And the people who are contacting us with concerns about GP access are actually going to go out and ask questions of those people who commission GP services and GPs. They're going to ask them themselves and get those answers immediately. And that's being done as a video, so we can share that. So that we're getting that really instant feedback as well.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. Thanks. Yeah. There's no further questions. Can I just emphasise, I know Mel and Julie know this, that the Citizens Forum within our partnership is only a very small number of committees, and it holds an equal status, doesn't it, Mel, in the hierarchy as to any other committee. The Citizens Forum is very much a part of that equal status of the committee structure.
Yeah, and I always said, it's very new, isn't it? But in time, I would hope and expect that there wouldn't be many decisions made by those other subgroups that didn't come through the Citizens Forum. If it was around changes to staffing, if it was around changes to, locating things and budgets, I'd struggle to have anybody explain to me why you wouldn't want the public's voice on that, why you wouldn't want to know how it was going to impact on people.
Okay, brilliant. Helen, thank you so much for giving us your time in person today. It's been a terrific briefing, thank you. Yeah, and do get well soon.
Yeah, you know what doctors are like.
Yes. Thanks very much, Helen. That's great. Okay, so colleagues, I hope you found that useful, a really good insight as to how important listening to our public in Bradford and beyond is to the way in which we make decisions. So thank you, Helen. Thanks again. Yeah. I'm conscious, colleagues, we do have a member of the public joining us as an observer. Hello, so you are welcome. And I apologise if it's a slightly difficult room in terms of hearing. I get that. But you're welcome here in your observing role. And you can't hear me now. Okay. I'm smiling and saying you're welcome here. Yeah. All right. That was great. Good start from Helen. Really good input. Thank you. Colleagues, you'll see what the agenda is for our meeting. So we'll get through some business in relation to what we've been talking about now, and reports from myself, and an opportunity for Mel to talk to us. Premises and operational planning guidance is to note, and then we do have a decision to make at item 11 on the annual Council of Governors effective skills and knowledge audit. We're looking to complete that by the end of February, so that's great. So it's a reasonably succinct agenda this time. There are, of course, important reports appended. May I ask whether there is any other business that anybody would be wanting to raise at today's Council of Governors? No, so we can get through what we've got by 5:30. A, we'll have done well, and B, that's what we're trying to achieve. Okay, in that case, may I ask whether anybody would declare a particular interest in any of the matters on the agenda, now that we know what that is? I don't think there is that we're talking about, personal, financial, etc. interests. I don't think they're there. We know the declarations of interest forms, of course. We have the minutes of our meeting held on the 20th of October. It's great to be face-to-face again, isn't it? So may I ask whether there are any matters of amendment or inaccuracy in those minutes, please, those draft minutes? May we accept them as a true record of our meeting in October? Yeah? Let's do that then. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And in terms of the actions, matters arising, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, 6 of those are shown as action closed. So should I begin? I won't go through them. I'm assuming people have got a copy of those and have had the chance to look at them. May I ask whether there are any questions relating to those that are shown action closed? One of them, the third on the list, 22013, does refer to something that is being arranged, and we can promise you that. Laura, you're sitting next to me. A planning session is going to be arranged to include the chairs and board secretaries, and that actually, good on us, is about getting governors together from various organisations within the Bradford district, making sure there can be a joint voice, a joint discussion. So I'm pleased to know that. But for those actions closed, may I take it that we're happy with the 6 shown closed? Okay. Suggestion that we might want to hear it. It's been done, I think. The board secretary has met with the chief operating officer, and the session will be scheduled for the council early in 2023. So the action remains open. We've taken that, and we will make sure you can personally meet the patient who's been his team. I think, unless Laura's going to...
Yeah, so it was just to update on the action. So yeah, I think obviously the first bit around patient experience, that was included in the bulletin. So that bit's completed. The second bit was around arranging an update for governors on performance. So I think that, because that took place at the last meeting, you related to the session with Sargent, proposed this action.
Perfect. Okay. So we close it on the basis we have the assurance here that that session with the patient experience team will be conducted. Yeah. Thanks very much, Laura. That's great. Okay. Having dealt with matters arising, shall we get into item 6, which is the summary from the pre-meeting with non-exec directors. Colleagues, executive colleagues that have joined us, a terrifically rich session based around the workload of the academies, excellent detail provided by our non-exec colleagues, and great questions raised from governors. 2 of those just required just a little bit of additional information. We did, as a non-executive group, provide our thoughts about this, but we did say that we'd just check what the situation is. Sarge, and I'm not bouncing this on anybody, because I've tried to say to people there might just be an ask for a little detail. Sarge, there was a really good point raised in Julie's session about the development of the day case units at St Luke's, which we're all pleased to hear about, and Julie articulated the wider benefits of that being a success. And there was a great question raised from governors as to what is the process by which we might identify a patient who has come in for day case and is going to need to stay with us? And can we be assured that there's a clear process by which those might be identified and managed? Yeah, please.
And I am going to bounce it back to Ray's clinical background, and the fact that Ray obviously very much is a practicing clinician and is a satisfied background. So I think Ray'll be able to give us the answer for that one, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. So I think the key thing to say first is the importance of patient selection. So a day case unit has not fulfilled its purpose if the patient ends up being admitted. And there are different aspects to why somebody might end up being admitted. So there are patient factors, of course, so they might have comorbidities, which might mean that the patient isn't well post-op. It might be that surgery is complex and there's a delay in recovery from that, or it might be that there's something unexpected happens. There's 2 things really controllable. So it's about selecting the right surgery to do in that location. It's about selecting the right patients who have the very best chance of being able to go home on the same day. The unexpected, of course, you can never legislate for. So, overall, failure of day case surgery, and by that I mean unexpected admission, rates are generally very low, and they run probably around, well, rates vary from between about 0.5% and up to maybe 2 or 3%. So you'd expect that rate to be very low, maybe 1, 2 in 100. We'd like it to be doing maybe 100 cases a week, so maybe 1 case a week, 2 cases a week at most. So it should be an unusual event. It's easy to think that a day case unit would be a weakness, but actually that's usually a strength, because if you're part of the main building, the temptation is to have a lower threshold to admit a patient across offices rather than if it takes a little bit more effort to admit somebody. So again, the geographical isolation is a strength because it means that the database rates are kept very high with admissions low, and of course it keeps those beds, it ring fences those beds because we're not getting ready. So that geographical isolation is actually very much a strength. So inevitably, despite all that, there will be those patients who then trying to reasons whether it's control, nausea, vomiting, or an expected complication. So the admissions will be very much protocol driven. So there would be agreed protocol depending on what the eventuality was. So if the patient, for example, were to have a sudden serious event, which of course can happen even with victims and patients having often not major surgery, then that protocol might direct that patient to be taken by ambulance to emergency department. Many triage those patients and see the actually care on them. If it is nothing quite as dramatic as that, it's just an unexpected minor complication, but the patient isn't willing to go home, then it may well be because the teams operating down there will have to dedicate some of the main sites of the infirmary, so we go to the team there to arrange admission at the main site. Transfer would usually be by ambulance, not necessarily emergency ambulance, of course, depending on the emergency transfer. So the WIC protocols would be liaison with the command centre. We're very fortunate, of course, at a command centre, and they spend much of their days struggling best, particularly on the RI main site. Of course, they would be invaluable in helping us with identifying the right there and liaison with the right team. So I think it's about admission avoidance first and foremost, correct patient selection, correct protocols to actually do the surgery and anesthesia to make sure that the patients have the best chance of going home. But when it happens, it should be a rare event, but there will be written protocols to support that process about how we transfer patients, where they go to liaison with the teams, liaison with the plans. So,
thanks very much.
If there's any follow-up happening to
I guess, can we be assured that the protocols will be well understood and rigorously applied?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are many database units out there around and about internationally, and there are very well established protocols to how that should be managed in the event of failing to get discharged.
Thanks, Ash. Thank you very much. Did that satisfactorily answer the additional query there? Yeah. I think we were just about right, weren't we? So that's great to hear from Chief Medical Officer, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you very much. And Pat, the second question just arose in Karen's terrific briefing, and it was about the retaining staff once they're qualified. So we're talking about staffing gaps, things like that, kind of do the information there. So you might just provide more information about that aspect. Helen, it was something you'd raised. Was it a particular staff group or issue you were thinking of?
I think it was about student nurses. Seeing that we're struggling to, or we're putting a lot of effort into recruiting nurses, do we have a good success of retaining those good students when they qualify?
Okay. So I think it's fair to say, particularly since the second wave of COVID, we have seen a big increase in the number of leavers, and that's both qualified and unqualified staff, and that's been merged across the NHS. You'll see proceedings with quite a lot of data in terms of the number of leavers. And we do seem to have turned a corner. So from our lowest turnover was at 10%. Our highest we went up to 13.5%, and we're now down at just over 12%. And from July this year, we have seen a month-on-month reduction in terms of turnover and number of leavers. Well, I don't have the data to hand on the number of qualified staff who leave in their first year of employment, because I think that's probably quite key in terms of your specific question. But again, we know that certainly from July last year we do have an improved position, And a lot of that is all the actions we put in place through our people promise, exemplar plan, got a really detailed retention plan. So it is sort of all around support, mentorship, development, but we definitely did see an impact in terms of people leaving professions altogether as well during that period.
I think what I was really interested in was, do we keep our student nurses when they qualify? So when we train our student nurses up, when they qualify, how many of them then get a job with this? Because obviously there are key pool of recruitment.
So Karen can probably answer
Thank you,
that.
thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
So we've always done really well until this last year. But normally we get around about 120 mixture of midwives, adult nurses, children nurses every year in September. And this year we actually got less adult trainers than we've ever done. So we only got about 45. I think that's probably the direct consequence of COVID and the experience they've had, and maybe they need to see the grass isn't greener on the other side. Where we did have success with paediatrics, and in particular on the neonatal unit. What we then do though is we monitor those student nurses that have started, and if any want to leave or aren't happy, we'll talk to them. I will speak to them, Joe, to my deputy will speak to them, and ask them why they want to leave. Is it because they want a different place to work? Is it a different organisation? What can we do to help them support? So we do intervene and try and get in there as well. We are though really focusing on the students' experience, and we've been for the last sort of 12 months really trying to improve that, and then really invest in those people. So we had a recruitment event yesterday, and we successfully recruited at last count 88 people, and I think 8 of those are new qualified nurses that are in their 3rd year of training that want to work at DTHT. The other thing that we've got is something called our Acorn Badge Scheme. So from little acorns, we go up in strong trees. That was started by Sandor in Orthopedics about 4 or 5 years ago. That stopped during COVID, we restarted that as well. So student nurses get a little acorn badge. So just, if somebody comes across them and then ask them something and they look a bit like stuck in the headlights, somebody will notice the acorn badge and think, they knew we're qualified. I'll let them breathe for a minute. So lots of work in that area, but thank you.
Does that help? Yeah. Derna, please, yeah, just a quick follow-up really. I'm curious as to where most of these recruits come from. Is it University of Bradford or Leeds or mixture?
So that I was just talking about Bradford then,
right.
University of Bradford, because they're the students that we have here, so we don't have nursing students from the university.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks, Lou. Okay. Yeah, great stuff. So hopefully that covers, you just asked for that little bit more detail there, and that's extremely helpful. So executive colleagues, thanks for that. I know you're going to move that. No way.
It's honestly, yeah,
Great stuff. Okay. And on to item 7, which is any matters that might have been raised by members, patients, and the public with us as governors. So I'll turn to Laura as our board secretary and just ask her to advise us of anything that might have arisen, please.
Thank you, Max. So this paper that's been circulated, which outlines some issues that were raised in the Saltaire patient participation group, which David attended. So I won't go through those because they're set out in the paper, but Karen, our chief nurse, and Sajja, chief operating officer, responded to those. And in addition to that, we have had a couple of questions raised prior to the meeting. So I'll read those out. I'll read one of them out. I think one of them we're able to respond to today, and the second one we will provide a separate written response. So the one we can respond to today is around the designation of the meetings of the Council of Governors. So the question is, up to including the last meeting of the Council of Governors chaired by Lord Cusell and Blanchard, notice of the meetings had stated that they were public meetings. Subsequently, they were designated as meetings held in public. So why was this change made? So I think at that time the change was made to make sure it was clear that these were meetings held in public, rather than public meetings. So they're open to members of the public to observe, but not to ask questions and participate in the meeting. So that's why that change was made. The question is, under what authority was the change made? So the Trust Secretary at the time made that decision authority. Was the Council of Governors involved in the decision? They weren't involved because it didn't actually change practice in any way. There was no change to the Constitution. What are the differences between the two designations, and how will those changes affect the ability of members of the Trust and public and patients to participate in Council of Governors meetings and their rights to report on the discussions and decisions made at those meetings? So in effect, there isn't any change to the way that members of the public can participate in meetings. They've always been held in public and been able to be observed, but not from participation for members of the public. So there isn't any change there, and there hasn't been. I'm reporting the findings. So in addition to a verbal response, will the Chair also provide a full written response? So we'll include full written response as part of the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, we'll take the second one. I'll just ask whether anybody's got any issues. Yeah.
Fine. So the second question relates to the naming of our Duke of York wing and whether we would consider renaming that and issue a public statement about that. So we'll provide a response to that question as part of the minutes.
Who would normally, would that be a discussion amongst all executives, Melanie, or do you have a particular executive director who might direct that to the naming of the wing?
Well, it's alluded in the name of your as we've not, in my time here, named them, it's not conventional familiar with in terms of who does what and what rights people have got. So we would need, if we bring the item back to the executive, we can perhaps take some advice and understand how that happened.
Yeah. Thank
I mean, of course, the Duke of York was named after York. Make that point.
No, thanks, man. I wasn't looking for an answer to the question, but just the process by which. So the executive will consider the question and will provide a response. Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you. So that was the two additional issues raised. Is there anything that we'd wish to say? No, are we content with the item? Yes.
Only that it was really good to see David joining the patient participation group in Sancerre.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting if you've got any information on patient participation groups that you might be able to reach out to in our own areas. That would be helpful because I wouldn't mind going to some. I'm not really aware of where they occur or when. So,
good suggestion. It's held by the partnership. We could perhaps invite Helen to advise us of that. I know that most, from my previous work there at the commissioners, they're keen to encourage representation at patient groups. Yeah. David, please.
No, yeah, I'm familiar with one of my local ones.
Can you go as a representative of the governors? As a government representative, there's obviously a number of different practices within the city saying you are.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
No, we'll get a list circulated, and I think that's a good idea. But Karen, thank you.
Yeah, I think Helen actually mentioned that there's sort of, I don't know, quarterly road robins that are being had across the partnership, the next one being in Keighley, with various droppings. I know I was asked for some mother and baby units and toddler groups and things like that. And I think Helen actually said if people wanted to be available and participate, that was fine. So there is a list. Vic Simmons, I think, is on this. That might know better. Is it Vic now?
Please, Melanie.
We can, yes, it is. Yeah, Vic Simmons and the Healthcare Partnership. So, but Laura can get in touch and we can circulate those. The pattern that they follow is the movement throughout the year of the Integrated Care Partnership Board. So within that week, at the end of it, or as part of it, the whole board will go to a location within Skipton, Max, and previously elsewhere, and I presume the next meeting will be in Keighley to coincide with the listening week in Keighley. So that's the intent, that we have the opportunity to engage as individuals, but also as a whole board, and invite people who have been part of the listening week in to be observers of the board.
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, thank you, Cam. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, we will get a list of primary care BPGs to people as well. Yeah,
useful for governors to feel in closer contact with their communities. It's one of those ways in which we can do that.
The point Kevin made about the partnership events as well is worth considering. Yeah. Okay, great. Everybody happy? We've dealt with the matters raised. Thanks very much. At item 8, there's the chairman's report. I won't read through the report. You can see there are 10 items on there. It's the most pleasurable part of that, of course, for me, is to warmly welcome, as I did in our session just with non-exec directors, our 2 new public governors. So we have Dr. Faraday Jabi, who joins us as a representative for Bradford South, and non-execs heard, as it says in the paper here, that she comes as a reader in is it pharmacology or pharmacology? It's pharmacology. Yeah, pharmacology. Yeah, thank you. At the University of Huddersfield. So, you know, bringing terrific personal, occupational experience that will be extremely helpful. And in our public governor for Shipley role, we warmly welcome Alex Atanaskovich. I got that right the first time, didn't I? Alex, yeah. I'm glad it's just Alex as well. Alexander's easy, isn't it? Who you can see it brings an education perspective, primary school teacher, but importantly, a SENCO, Special Educational Needs and Disability Coordinator. So therefore brings terrific insight into that particular aspect of our work. So, warm welcome to you both. It's great to have you with us. And I do appreciate you bring much wider than your occupational experience, but to have that joining us as governors is fabulous. So, yeah, thank you and a warm welcome to you both. Yeah, it's also nice that I can warmly welcome back, of course, David as our public governor for Shipley, who was successful in the election as well, David. So, and of course, our vice chair of Council of Governors, to Dermot, who joins us as well, and that's Bradford West, of course. And I should perhaps have said this at the start, but online joining us as well, because obviously being out of Bradford, Governor Mark Chambers is well out of Bradford. It will be a long way to come for this meeting. And so he joins us online and wave, and he is indeed waving his Mark. Clearly Mark can hear me. I did my best to Mark at the start of if you get any points, maybe if you dropped a text or something. Might be the easiest way to engage with the meeting, but that's appreciated. And well done to the team who made that happen for Mark, given that he is at the out of Bradford. Okay. With my other points, I don't think there's anything I'd particularly emphasise. I did mention the maternity session. I do hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was really rich in detail. And the other thing is, I know we've discussed this, but the patient experience executive briefing that was really well pulled together by our Chief Nurse is on here as part of the appendix. So a reminder of all the work that we're doing in patient experience. So we look forward to meeting with the patient experience team. You're asked to note the report. Is that okay? As I always say at the end of this, I remain available to you if there's anything, of course, that arises that you want to catch up with me about. Okay. Shall we turn to Mel then and give Mel the opportunity from the head of the house, Chief Executive update. So Mel, the floor's with you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Really, in the interest of time, on this occasion, there is a written report that I would refer to. It's the same report that was presented at the Open Trust Board. I'll just draw your attention to a couple of items that are supplementary items to the report, 2 of which you may have heard about if you were part of the maternity session update, but I will come to those. Because the first thing I want to do is to pay tribute to a very dearly loved colleague who passed away on 17th of January. We will be, I believe, quite familiar to a number of people in the room, and his passing is a real tragedy. Dr. Paul Southern, who had worked at the Trust from 2008, consultant hepatologist, but not only a consultant hepatologist, a dearly loved colleague, friend, a supportive executive, standing when he took on the role of the interim information officer between the departure of Cindy and the arrival of Paul Rice. A guy who was into every nook and cranny of the organisation, and as a consequence of that, through his work in the implementation of our EPR in 2017, and all that has gone with that since, he was so well known that his passing has affected so many people. I just wanted to remember him, pay tribute to him, and in particular send our good wishes and our thoughts to Charlotte, his wife, and their 3 children.
Thanks, Mel. May I just pause you a second, though, because I do think a couple of governors knew Paul quite well as well, so I'll just see if anybody wished to say anything.
I had the pleasure of knowing Paul somewhat. I worked with Paul over several years on occasion in my role as a programme manager for the Bradford District Digital Programme. And I back up everything that Mel said. He was a fantastic person to work with professionally. He was one of the busiest people I've ever met, but he would always have time for you, and he was so smart and engaged and knowledgeable and brilliant, really, professionally. But there was also something about him which was, he was a genuinely lovely man. You can't help but meet him and not be touched by him emotionally, just because there's just something about him was just so good. And I just thought, if I ever have a little problem, I want him looking after me. And he was brilliant from the digital perspective as well. You know, his knowledge of EPR, his knowledge of the command centre. I had him take a sort of bit of a VIP around on a tour once, and the way I saw him interact with all of his colleagues in ICU and other places, the way you could just tell the respect that people had for him. I must admit, when I heard the news, a former colleague phoned me up. It just knocked me for 6. He was such a loss. But I just wanted to say that because it was must be very, very hard for his closest colleagues. I mean, I don't know him that well, but I felt really moved by it, and it was so sad.
Great guy, well said. Thank you for your contribution. Mel, thanks for beginning with Paul. Did you want to come in? Of course, John.
I just echo that it has been a terribly moving time for all of the hospital, but particularly amongst the senior medical staff that have worked alongside him very closely. Many of us knew him personally as well as professionally. His kids in the same class as my kids at the same school. Even before the ambulance crew got there, some of his colleagues who have been friends since medical school were there on the day. It's been a tough time, and we're still even trying to work out how we can fill the hole that's been left.
Yes, it's a loss. Yeah. May you rest in peace. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, John. And Mel, thank you for beginning with memory of Paul.
So taking the report as read, I'm happy to answer questions for it on it. But in addition to that, you will recall that in 2019 we were inspected by the CQC, and our rating overall as an organisation, when the report was published in early 2020, was good. One of our services, however, was rated as requires improvement, and that was our maternity service. And as a consequence of that, we were invited to join, when I say invited, it was kind of expected more than invited, to join something called the Maternity Support Programme. And so from that time until now, we have been a part of that, and it sat very comfortably along with our outstanding maternity services programme that has now been for over two years. And pleasingly, we received the closed letter from the head chief midwifery officer of England, Professor Jacqueline Dunkley-Bent, to inform her that they have been so pleased with what they have seen in terms of our progress that we can formally exit from that programme, which is excellent news. And then on the 4th of January, after what was an incredibly pressured, actually in the middle of an incredibly pressured operational period for us that you will read about in the section on patients, we were notified that we were to have a maternity inspection by CQC. So they came on the 4th of January. We didn't receive feedback until the 10th of January. Usually it's the case that they give you feedback sort of in the moment, but that wasn't possible. I think they've had some logistical problems in assembling some of their inspection team that meant it couldn't conclude in the day, and so it kind of transposed into subsequent days. So on the 10th of January, Karen, a number of maternity colleagues, and myself joined a call to receive feedback, which lasted all of, in its entirety, 8 minutes, and I think 7 minutes of that were introductions. And so the sort of summary there about the feedback is exactly what they said, but what they also said, as is the case, they hadn't reviewed much of the evidence at that point that we had supplied to them. So this is very much work in progress, and we have furnished with them in with answers to their questions and supplementary evidence that they sought to request after they inspected our services, and we will await in about 6 to 8 weeks, I think, a draft report from them. So that's all I wanted to say, Chairman. Happy to take questions.
Thanks very much, Mel. Thank you. Yeah. So is anything arisen in our early discussions or so far, Council, that you'd like to just ask Mel about? David, please.
Thank you. Very good news about maternity. You mentioned about the CQC inspection in 2019.
Yeah.
When do we expect to have the next one?
We just had it. That was the one.
That was it. No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was doing a full scale thing.
So the CQC have post-pandemic have very much changed their approach to how they will conduct the inspection regime. So what they have switched to now is what they call a risk-based approach. So the normal intervals by which we would expect a full assessment of our services have changed, and they will only come and do inspections if they have particular concerns. The issue that we have about this particular inspection is that even though they inspected the maternity services, they only looked at 2 of the domains within. And even if therefore they were rated good, that wouldn't be sufficient for us to change our overall rating of maternity services. So we would still retain our good overall rating as a trust until such times they were inspected, whatever might have triggered that. And we would still probably, I think I'm correct in saying this, even if we were kind of rated good in some of these domains, we would still be overall requires improvement for maternity.
That's correct. The one sort of consolation prize is that if we are rated good under the well-led domain in terms of, that will mean that the VRI site will use VRI requires improvement, other sites are good, aggregation of the trust is good, so it will mean the VRI will use good, which is uncertain.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Yeah. Yes, of course, Alex. Yeah, and then David.
Sorry about this. You might have answered this question already, but I'm still asked. So if the CQC came observed on 4th of January and they saw 2 areas, what is the percentage that they need to see to change the overall rating? Because they only had time to see 2. And how do you know what you need to do to make it better overall?
Yeah, come to So it's really complicated how the CQC works, and actually for a future meeting it might be worth coming to talk about how their inspection regimes are changing. That'll be an interesting session. So as a trust we registered with CQC. If you go on the CQ website you'll see that, and we have a number of regulated activities that we have. So there are many different bits of services that we look at. For each of those services, they inspect it across 5 domains. So here's a test of Karen's memory: responsive, effectiveness, caring, well-led. What's the fifth?
Safe.
Thank you, safe. How can I forget safe and safe? So for each of those services are then brought down into those domains. So currently, maternity was inspected because governors will be aware of things like the East Kent report and the afternoon report. The Secretary of State Health asked for the CQC to review all maternity services across the country by, I think it was initially March of this year, but then moved to May this year. Because of the volume that would take, they are not looking at all 5 of those areas for every maternity unit. They're just looking at safe and well-led. So I hope that was somewhere to answer your question. It's not as simple. They then have a number of magic charts where they put results in for different bits, and that then gives you an overall score by site, by service, and an overall trust score. So currently all of our sites, apart from the BI, are green and good. BI requires improvement. If we move in maternity, I'm hopeful that if we get the result that we want, we can move BRI to good. But if we don't move that rate, it won't move.
Karen, is it fair to say that we're sort of in CQC's hands in terms of when they might choose to come and inspect somewhere and where it might be that they inspect?
Yes.
It's their decision.
Yeah. I mean, what the CQC does, so every month the CQC meets, SAS joins as well, or other members of the exec, and they go through areas that they might have concerns about. So they have an amount of information that's available to them, so they can see all audits, they get concerns from members of the public, they'll see audits, they'll see ambulance data, waiting times. If the CQ, they then look at that in some magic formula, and that will lead them to decide whether or not that organisation poses a risk. If something triggered on that poses a risk, that may then well trigger an inspection. However, with the winter crisis that has been going on or that started, the CQC has been directed not to do any inspections unless there is a threat of life, an extreme threat of safety. Again, that will be done based on this profile and this monthly matching and looking at risk across the system. So the other inspection that's been announced recently is around mental health and patient services, but that won't impact on us.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Yes, so the Care Policy Commission holds the key, Alex, but their surveillance is ongoing, as Karen points out.
It's live.
Yes, thank you. Chris, please.
Yes, so basically, if we do really, really well, we're not going to get noticed.
Unfortunately, that's what happened with maternity, because we made improvements very rapidly from the 2019 visit and the report that came out 2020.
So if we totally transform over the next few years, months, nobody's going to know.
That's correct.
Patients was that
Except to the point that Mel made, that the national scrutiny is like, you're doing great, get out of this programme, keep going. Yeah. So, yeah, good point, Chair. Thank you.
Very small point. Just looking at the CQC, it seems to be brief initial feedback. I didn't really understand the point of oversight of the waiting area for patients waiting for maternity centre remains a concern. What do they mean by oversight? Is it?
So our maternity assessment centre, or MAC, is the equivalent of an AD services. When we started to introduce all the improvements that's reduced, it resulted in a halving of the stillbirths over the last 6 years. That meant that more women are attending our emergency services, our MAC, because we're drilling into people, we have reduced people movements, please come, we're babies at risk. So we have more people attending. We then realised that it was crowded, so we thought, okay, what can we do now? So we introduced something called BSOPs, which is Birmingham something obstetric tool. And that is the equivalent of a triage tool for maternity. And there's only a handful do it across the country. So we were the first in West Yorkshire. That's now been adopted by the wider LMNS. Can't say that, LMNS. So it's really good practice. However, I think the CQC were potentially a bit confused. So when they came in and they went and they said, oh, where's your intentional rounding? Now, intentional rounding is a term that's used for A&E triage. So if you think about it, you come to A&E, you're very sick, you get triage, and then you can work to wire depending on that. So CQC would expect us to continue to check on people in the department. But with Conservative, we don't do that. One, because they don't wait as long, and two, because yes, it's you're either you see it straight away or you worry well. So they wanted to know why we weren't intentionally rounding. So we were a bit perplexed, but under scratching the surface a bit more, there was a huge waiting area that's used for the MAC and the antenatal day unit. And there was no separation, the women just couldn't sat wherever they wanted, which is fine. And what the CQC said was that actually you can't be checking on them, and also you don't know where they are, because you could have a day unit patient there, or somebody just comes to clinic. So what we did, the night after the left was the estates department came in and created a whole new area, so they colour coded it, and that's now the MAC place area. So a long explanation, but hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable question. Thank you, Dermot. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Ibrahim, please.
Thank you. Just a quick point about the response to the cost of living crisis. The website is really helpful, Cost of Living Bradford. Some fantastic information on there. There's also a brochure that the organisation's produced, which is just as helpful, especially for people who don't have access to internet. So just a quick question, is that available to patients? And have we got enough copies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
6,000.
I know it was so popular that the newspaper was about 40,000 and we've got thousands of them.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, trying to get them out into waiting areas and public areas and concourse and things like that. It's great. It's fantastic.
It's brilliant.
Yes, it's really good.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Julie, I know your hands are in, so thank you, presence here. Yeah. And indeed, the bit you gave on priorities and operational planning guidance too. So yeah, that's really
I was
helpful.
looking at it, heard it yesterday, so.
Of course, yeah, fresh in the mind. Okay, so again, obviously we have a limited time when we get together as a briefing, but Mel will always provide information, or one of the exec colleagues, of course, if that's required, and you know how to contact, perhaps through Jackie, should that be. I'm saying that in the spirit of not trying to rush things on too much, but it's good, and the questions were well received and very well answered. Thank you, everybody. Shall we move to item 10 then, please, which is for us to note the priorities and operational planning guidance for 23-24. A chance perhaps to turn to Matthew and Saj, just to ask whether there are any particular points that we'd like to emphasise to governors, but hopefully colleagues have been able to see the report provided. So I don't know which one I'm going to first, whether it's...
I think I'll start off and then I'll pass to Matthew simply because of the order that the slides are in. So we've just literally got 4 slides that we wanted to highlight to Council of Governors. The first thing to say is that the operational plan guidance is guidance that comes out on a yearly basis, sets out the priorities for the following year. This is operational plan guidance, like last year, came out just prior to the Christmas break, in fact, landed figures on the 23rd of December. It gives a quick overview of the 3 priorities and to planning, operational priorities, finance, and workforce. The 3 key templates that we are required to submit. So we get the narrative guidance, and then over time we get certain templates that we have to fill in. They're alternated at place level, so Bradford District and Cradle will pull those together at place, and then they'll get submitted to our wider system for collation and on submission. So we've just picked out some of the key areas. You can imagine well, this document is actually pinned out in 20 pages long. Previous versions have been much longer than that. So from an operational perspective, it breaks down into certain areas, so urgent emergency care, elective care, cancer. And what we've tried to do there is list out some of the key priorities. So for instance, the 4-hour standard still remains. Lots of organisations, in fact, I don't know a single organisation that's quite delivered the entirety of the 95% standard. The ask is we need to get to 76% by March 2024. We need to support ambulance services in terms of their response time by ensuring that we don't delay ambulances in their handover, and we need to maintain a bed occupancy rate of 92% so that we maintain flow through the hospital. And similarly, in terms of our long wait patients, this year the challenge was to get to 78 weeks wait. Next year the challenge is to get to those 65 weeks. For cancer, a big focus on the faster diagnosis standard and moving towards increasing the percentage of patients that are diagnosed at stage 1 and 2, and to reducing the number of patients that are beyond 62-day rate. The diagnostic standard for next year has been set at 95%. It is a 99% standard for patients to be seen within 6 weeks of referral. So this is across 15 different modalities, because the quicker you can see patients through their diagnostic pathway, the quicker you're going to be able to impact their treatment needs, and therefore if you are diagnosing things like cancers, the earlier you're going to make those diagnoses and subsequently to their treatment. There's a number of key areas in terms of maternity, things like reducing stillbirth rates, neonatal mortality, etc. And then other areas within the guidance as well. So particular workforce, I will come to that in a second just to see if there's anything that perhaps wants to add. But certainly around primary care access, mental health and health inequalities as well. So quite broad ranging in its aspect. We are working in terms of completing the templates we've got in order to submit by the deadline, which is towards the end of February. Do you want to say anything on workforce before I pass over to Matthew?
So just the two key things in workforce that we have to focus on are improving attendance and improving retention. No surprises there, but that's it's one objective, it's really two objectives. That's the key.
Thanks, Matt. So I'll hand over to Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I won't go through the details on the slide, I just might provide a little bit of wider context, because that's a very high level of the what's going to happen on the slide. But when you look at where we currently are, as Sam mentioned, the planning guidance was published on the 24th of December and continues to be updated, but there's still a lot of uncertainty around particularly the financial settlement that places will see and then subsequent organisations within places. So at the moment we don't know what income we are going to get through the overall settlement. But a lot of work is going on internally at place level and the system level, which is ICS, the autonomous system, to understand and develop the principles and the methodology of how money may be allocated across all of the organisations. And Julie's chairing a meeting on Tuesday morning next week of all the place companies are coming together to discuss those principles of how we may best manage the position we've got to create to deliver a balanced position as healthcare organisations. But what we need, and that's all then about the collaboration and working together to make sure we can get over the line. Throughout all of this, we need to continue to maintain that robust system of impact assessing any decisions or the impact assessment of all the things that Sam just highlighted on his, to say actually, if we chase all of those activity targets, does it restable what we want to do from a people perspective, or does it destabilise what we want to do from a finance perspective? So, back of our mind, we've always got the balanced scorecard to try and make sure we do maintain that equilibrium between all three different aims. But we do know that we're going into a very different world next year from a particular financial perspective, that we're getting back to pre-pandemic expectations around how we're going to manage. We've had quite a reasonable degree of flexibility for the last 2 years.
that flexibility is good, and a lot of organisations are even struggling to get over the line this year and really pose problems for next year. And in light of that, it's very clear that the centre are upping their game on overview and scrutiny and control of how places and organisations will manage their money next year. So we need to be mindful of adapting our systems that will align to what is expected at a national and system level, but also being mindful of even our own or internal accountability frameworks. We've got to get the balance right between what we want to do as an organisation and feeding the bids. But we're currently trying to establish what that balance will look like. So that's a very, just an overview of what we're trying to do in terms of managing the overall message. But one of the key messages is we simply have to maintain financial stability as an organisation to allow us to progress our really ambitious strategies in our objectives as an organisation. We have been successful over recent years in maintaining a strong financial foundation that's given us enough cash in the bank to allow us to develop a lot of estate by new equipment. So if you look over the last 3 years, we spent in excess of 100 million on capital investment. And at the moment, of course, we will have a capital programme somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 million next year. We're still waiting what the allocation will be. That will allow us to spend £15 million on the secondary case unit, £5 million on the Eccleshill Community Diagnostic Centre, but then invest on some of our strategic investment, completing some of the work we started this year at outstanding maternity services. So, but all of this depends on us maintaining a healthy financial position. If we go into deficit, we very quickly start eating into the money we've got in the bank. So, maintaining overall financial stability, but in light of getting the balance between living up performance, living up people ambitions, is going to be the key challenge for the next year, which is the basis of which we've got a deliverable plan next year.
Thanks very much, Matthew, and thank you, Sarge, as well. So, colleagues, governors, we're asked to note this. We've got 5 national priorities is the ask of us, and it's outlined there with the particular targets around those. And then Matthew has articulated how we're taking a collaborative approach with vigilance towards making sure we can pay for it. I hope that helps. Clearly, it's the sort of thing we could spend a full day on very easily, couldn't we? But it's about giving you that basic information of where we're going, and the rest of us to be there, because that's what we're trying to achieve. So is that understood? Okay. Yeah, of course, I'll see. Yeah.
So estimated 25 million.
Moment, a big piece of work to compare what we were spending in 2019 and how that cost base moved to look at what we're projecting to spend in 2023-24, and where is the information signposted where there might be reduce our limit. So we do know that we have, as a result of the pandemic, had to source capacity externally on the organisation, but also to bring in organisations and it's not the most cost-effective model of delivery activity. So what can we bring back in-house when we look at the cost that we are incurring on that and actually look at generating activity? At the moment, that information is still being developed, and we've got to be very mindful of the impact of activity we do change what we're doing, but that's the sort of stuff that we're approaching to do to opportunity. We believe so.
Does that help? Thank you. There's no further questions. We're asked to note that. Again, we appreciate it. We'll keep it, of course, well briefed on where we go in terms of operations and finance. Yeah. Thanks very much, everyone. Okay, I'll move to item 11 then, please. The last item on the agenda proper, which is a matter for our decision, actually. And it's to do with the effectiveness of the Council of Governors and the skills and knowledge audit that we might wish to put in place. And we're looking at cracking on with this, I think, and a response by 10th of February with a view to a completion by the end of February. So that's just setting the context of it. But I'll turn to Laura and ask what she would wish to bring to our attention, please, Laura.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I think you probably raised the key points for me there. So We assess the effectiveness of the council governors on an annual basis, and we also ask governors to complete a skills and knowledge audit. So the templates for those two pieces of work are attached. So at this point, we're just asking governors to look at the template questions and provide any feedback, as you said, by the 10th of February, and then we'll adjust the forms, in line with the feedback received, and send those out for governors to complete during late February up to mid-March, and then we'll collate the results and present those back in April. So happy to take any comments today or send it by email.
So some time to think about it, reflect on it, see if there's any particular changes you want to make. But thank you, Laura, and I hope we're not rushing too much there, but hopefully you've had the chance to look at that, and we will happily receive suggestions for amendments to Appendix 1 or 2 in your own time. So we've got a couple of weeks there to receive those. Does anybody want to make any comments as to how they feel, what they look like? Any initial thoughts here at this meeting? We're happy to pass information through by email if you go home tonight and have time to have a thorough look through. Yeah, is that okay? Great stuff. Okay. Well, the ask here was that we decide if we're content with Appendix 1 and 2, and of course the caveat that we're giving is that Laura will happily receive any suggestions by the 10th of February, and if so, would circulate those to governors for comments. Yeah. Okay. Everybody happy with that? Great stuff. Okay. Colleagues, that's the end of the meeting proper. There are the reports, important reports, of course, from board, which I'm grateful to our governance team for pulling together. Again, it's to make sure you've got the insight on those things, and you have other ways, of course, of accessing those. May I just take no more than 30 seconds to advise you that Barry, our audit committee chair, who did give his apologies, just made 4 quick bullet points for me to bring to your attention, which I promised to do. So further to his audit committee report, point 1 was that his report to board on 10th of November is enclosed. I hope it's self-explanatory and sufficient, and he will be happy to answer any questions outstanding after the meeting by email. So again, through Jackie, Barry will be happy to deal with any queries that might arise, which is good on him, and he wasn't able to make it here today. Second bullet point was that the audit committee annual self-assessment currently in progress. The report refers to a meeting of the audit committee to progress this scheduled for 26th of January. That's actually been moved to the 1st of February. So just a minor amendment to Barry's report. And that was so that there was actually full audit committee attendance. One of our MED colleagues wasn't able to make 26th of January. So again, second bullet point. Third is that the self-assessment will include the committee giving full consideration to the implications for the committee of the Health and Care Act 2022. So governors can be assured that the audit committee are thinking about the Health and Care Act 2022 and making sure that that's taken into account for what they do and what we do. And finally, the 4th bullet point is that the next audit committee meeting is on the 7th of February, and that due allowance is being made regarding executive colleagues' attendance, given that there may well be strike action on that day. Again, that is rightly just wanted me to bring that to your attention. Okay. So that was just additional information which I hope you find useful to those reports. In the absence of any other business, shall we consider whether we met what we wanted to do? I'm asked to review the meeting. Would anybody wish to make any comments regarding the conduct of the meeting, please? Nothing received at the moment, but we do have a great session planned, don't we? I hope as many as possible can make it, where non-exec directors and governors are going to get together for a discussion session, an open discussion session facilitated. I have met the facilitator from NHS providers. He's great, knows his stuff, and we'll ensure that an open discussion between us about how well we're doing. I told him I don't think there are no particular issues of concern that I wanted to bring to his attention so that we can have an open meeting. But of course, I'm conscious that these last 3 years, as Mel touched on, have been so difficult, haven't they, for us to work together when we're having to share online presence of meetings with face-to-face. But that will be a great session. The 2nd of February, facilitated session for NEDs and governors. Thanks everybody. And can I suggest, we just about did it at 1:30, didn't we? Shall we just take 5 for a quick leg stretch? Anybody who wants a fresh cup of tea or anything like that? And we can deal with the 2 matters that we do have in closed meeting, which are properly placed there for either sensitivity or commercial reasons. We've got 2
Hello,
matters.
Mark. Should we just keep this line open? Brilliant, thanks. We're going to have a 5-minute break now. Okie doke. See you in a minute.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
It was that crazy meeting. 2 points. Yeah, that's where it was from.
Chris, one of the first videos. No, I haven't. I'm usually clever enough to avoid flash
It's getting worse.
I know, but it's the way they explain to me. Absolutely, they're great. Yeah. It's just the way that
I'm not sure. Oh, sorry. I don't know.
Yes. Tomorrow, but they're not mandatory. And yeah, if you've got any questions about anything, just send them through. It's why I'm asking. Okay. Yes. Well, I wish you. Oh, okay.
If they said no,
Yeah.
they're supposed to have, but if they said no.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's fine, yeah, exactly, it's fine, we understand, these words like adolescents. And they're useful because it helps us try to get rid of it. We understand that people won't all be now, can we call but there are just, you know, kind of the certain mandatory things. What if there was the NHS provider schools? If you can cite.
Yes, that was in March, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a number of them.
I changed it at the beginning of the examiners for the PhD.
Ah, right. Yeah, no, well, we need to be doing that.
But then I checked, I waited for him. And I think there's not many representatives. I don't have to change, but I knew now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and I was like, we've seen that and so on. Laura, Faraday. I just.
Increase the sewage now.
It takes a lot.
I do agree
It's a busy time. Yeah, but it's all like this. Yeah. Here it was the sound, that's what got me. We will expect that one, I'll show you.
Yeah, there's a lot of up and down. The Wickenshire Francis.
Well, we're looking at the hospital.
Oh, okay.
So that'd be so much better.
Yeah, yeah.
Those up.
Yeah.
You don't have to check outside.
Yeah. I'm not really need random free car park. You're right. Some food. I'm just wondering what the arrangements are for food delivery. If I want to give them. I'll give you my, I'll let you know my way. That's so far.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
It's not that much.
Well, that's the
It's just, yeah.
You held up
Is that what this is? I don't know. When I get an email, I can just click. Sorry? I get the.
Okay, should we,
Yes.
okay, should we crack on, everyone, and get the closed meeting done? I am conscious that I don't forget, by the way, that you guys have been here an hour before, just about, isn't it? That you know, we come. So you know, I know it's a long day for you. I do hope you feel that there's been some good, rich discussion. And I know I keep saying this, but it don't finish. It doesn't start and finish here. You know that there's ongoing engagement. The way in which you need to make a query, happy to do that. Welcome everybody to the Council of Governors meeting, which is closed for good reason in relation to the two items. The apologies for absence, should I note the same apologies, do you think, Laura, that, well, certainly from Callie and Heather. And Fozzie as well, yeah. Did we include Fozzie in the first one, I think, should I? Given the...
Yeah, make sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Callie and Fozzie, is there anybody else that should be putting you in? Ibra, thank you. Yeah.
It must have gone.
Yes, I hadn't realised that. So thank you, John. Yeah. So we'll note Ibra's apologies then. It's going from here. That's fine. Okay. So Colleagues, we two matters for approval actually. Have your agendas been changed? I know mine initially said to note, but hopefully they both say for approval. Will they? Yeah, there is matters for approval. I'll make sure that you know that as we do that. I might have been an earlier draft of it before we started. So external auditor contract we're going to talk about, and the appointment of the nomination and remuneration committee member. So we'll get on with that, and we're helped by Matthew holding on for us to advise us regarding the external audit contract, and to hopefully seek your approval for the recommendation there. And then Laura will take us through the proposed appointment of the NRC members. And if we do those two things, are we content? Was there anything else that anybody needed to raise in closed business? No. In that case, does anybody need to declare any interest in specific interest in these matters? That's important, of course. At a closed room, we're talking about offering a contract, for example. We just need to know whether anybody has any particular interests. And I will take it they don't, and I know that you will bring to my attention if it arises. Okay, right. That's giving a clue, isn't it? Okay, so yes, of course we should. Yeah, I mean, it's always a courtesy, isn't it, to the people that are here, and indeed to the person who may be interested in the outcome of that discussion. And so, David, if you don't mind, may I take your suggestion that you might just exit the room for a moment while we have that discussion and make that decision. Thanks very much, everyone. I'm assuming that no items of other business, then you've said that. And can I check with you, please, that you're happy with the minutes of the meeting that we held on the 20th of October? Yep, there are no matters of inaccuracy or amendment.
Jackie, can you turn the camera back on, please?
And there are no matters arising that I could see there. Would that be in keeping with everybody else?
Can you see? No, the camera's gone black at the moment.
Oh, has it? Hang on and be able to.
I think there's a problem with it then. I'll just.
Matthew ties it yet, so it gets
No worries.
trust director.
Can you see now?
So he will advise us as to the proposed change in contract with Deloitte. So may I turn to you, please, Matthew?
Like a bill, there's only one way to go when you have So, it's one of the responsibilities of the governors to appoint our external audit. So, 3 years ago, David kindly chaired the group that went through a tender process 3 years ago. David, didn't feel like that was it. So, kindly chaired the group, and we offered the tender to Deloitte to for a period of time. Originally, it was for 3 years, was 2 option to award the contract, and we've now come to the end of the 3rd year, and the audit market is really turbulent, tricky market, and Deloitte have come back to us and said that they would love to continue to be engaged with us, but can't afford to do it under the existing committee. The ask of external audit in terms of complexity of the audit, scope of the audit has changed fundamentally. Whereas previously, the number of external audit policies that have been lost leaving it and being quite low, with the opportunity to track work and actually contract, that's no longer the case. So prior to Deloitte, we had KPMG, who did our external audit and did our VAT services. And we can't do one of the other, we can't do one. So, given the timelines, we thought, we haven't got time to go out and do a full tender. And actually, given the market, would there be, what is the risk of doing that? We do know other local banks will struggle to the point of external audit. What the Foundation Trust would be why had to delay their accounts for 6 or 7 months because we couldn't point to policy. So we worked with Curate to try and identify whether there was a compliant route to the market, continue to use services of Deloitte, albeit through a different contract. Same service, but not through the original framework we had. But it comes at an additional cost. Certainly around £175,000 compared to £73,000 that we currently pay. But we did undertake a benchmarking piece of work to compare if Deloitte would be reasonably cost effective. And they probably land in right bang in the middle of the big firms. I've got the KPMG, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, Grant Thornton. So we're reasonably comfortable around the costs that they are proposing within the contract. We've had a detailed discussion with the chair of audit, who's absolutely endorsed this way forward, and given his understanding, working as a partner in a big company, his understanding of the market at the moment. I've taken the paper through the board of directors to inform them of the proposal. And it's an interesting one really, because the board had debate around how best to deal with this from a government's perspective. It's something we've never done before. But of course, it would be appropriate to bring here today, share with you the context of the exercise that we've been through, just to seek approval to extend the contract with Deloitte, go into an arrangement that's a 2+1 year contract with them. They're quite comfortable to do that. All these left in inflating rate, that will at least give us time to undertake a procurement probably in a few years' time, but hopefully the market will settle down. So the ask here today is just to endorse the recommendation.
Thanks very much, and it is a decision for governance, as you rightly said at the start of that, so thank you. So colleagues, is there anything you'd want to know from the paper? So let's just start with you and then John.
Just clarify what you're saying 2+1. Is this an extension of the length of the contract? This is within the same contract?
No, it's a brand new contract. All these are different procurement frameworks. So that we will cease the existing one at the end of May and enter the new one.
But was the existing one meant to go on longer?
We will come to the formal end of the contract, but we have an option to extend 2 years.
Oh,
I won't go on to an advance.
Okay, so the modification is a modification to an extension.
Yeah.
Was already part of the existing process. So we don't need to be pure because that was already.
So it's a brand new contract, but we have the facility to re-procure through a framework.
Yeah. So
you don't have to do the full 10 years.
Yeah. So I guess I think you might answer the question, but I'll just ask it slightly. Is we don't have, clearly it wasn't in the original procurement proposal that we would extend for 50 grand extra a year. So is that, are we at risk of procurement?
So you're quite right, we didn't have, the original 3+2 was on the existing cost, plus an amount. The lawyer said, we can't do that. But when you look at the procurement rules, a lot of services now are and there is one available to allow to re-procure.
Yeah, I'll just bring John in first, please, and then David and yeah. So, John, please, yeah.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I have a few questions actually. There's a short ones. So the current contract we have with the 2-year +2, that's not, we're not obliged to continue with that. There's a break.
You have to come to an agreement.
Right. So okay, so that's off the table anyway. You talk about the market being turbulent. Do we have any expectation? Do we understand why that is, and do we have any expectation that it will be less so in a couple of years' time?
There's a few points that the whole scope of the external audit has changed. So different accounting standards have come on. IFRS 16 is one which is the rest of leases. It's just
that, yeah.
Okay. In terms of the input required from external audit. But the external audit environment at the moment is really struggling with capacity. For example, I think they're going to struggle through our charity audit which year. Rather than so that's what we're all for. 2 years time.
We'll have caught on. And then the last thing I was going to ask was a quick question is, you did a benchmarking study looking at it, and it was in the pack. But if we think that other providers are going to be able to provide it at the same cost, why would we forego the advantage from an oversight point of view of changing the contract? I think it's going to be about the same cost.
Of course, it's not. So in this example here, we are procuring for probably £200,000.
Yeah.
Per annum for roads.
And when you mention
rather than re-tendering, which is a big exercise that David probably could not get to step back to go through, it was easier at the moment to stay with the incumbent provider, albeit on a different.
Yeah, sorry. So I might have missed something. I'm not saying myself. From an oversight point of view, it's often useful to change an auditor, isn't it? Because you get used to each other's ways of working. So, so there's an advantage in changing an auditor from an oversight point of view. And if we benchmark, and this 172 to 180,000 is the going rate now, why wouldn't we consider changing? Because the others are on framework as well, aren't they?
Yeah. So a couple of the others are KPMG. You would for them because they provide our VAT advice.
Yeah, so they're off the.
But actually, there is a little bit of 5 years isn't a long time really. Say that all the service. There is advantage to be gained from retaining that intelligence.
Okay.
With Deloitte, who we've taken them through the journey, particularly IFRS.
Yeah.
16.
No, I'm aware of the conversations we've had.
Yeah. So there is a degree of comfort. I'm sharing that, maintaining that relationship and ensuring they know what we're doing, rather than looking to somebody new and it's 2 years trying to develop that relationship.
And so actually 5 years in the cycle is not a long cycle. Fine. Okay. That's great. Thank you.
No, thank you, John. Yeah, that's great. Okay. And David, please, then Adrian. Yeah.
Really, just back up with what Matthew said about the law. Probably coming across exactly the same thing in the housing sector. And it's very difficult to get external laws. So
I've seen evidence of that in other sectors.
Yes, it could, feel like a massive increase.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Yeah, Adrian, please.
I think it's been answered, but it just sounded interesting that it was a 3+2 and now you've gone to 2+, but that plus set part of it is not a tool that they use to renegotiate halfway through the contract. No, not normal. Not normal. It sounds like normal.
Yeah. And we have enacted it in previous, prior to having the law, we enacted it with KPMG. Obviously, we do that.
Follow that. Sure. Yeah. Is that the Deloitte weren't keen to continue on that 3-year rate, the +2. But there was no attempt. I mean, was there an attempt made to negotiate financially on the +2? Could there be a contract adjustment? So we get somewhere less than the new framework cost. Well, they're not prepared to even consider it.
No, and we would be now without looking on the law.
That would have been outside the period.
We have to law.
But the +2 is only on existing inflation whatever terms. Otherwise you have to reconfigure. There's no negotiation.
Another company could have back out.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's good to know. It's worth asking that, because I haven't heard anything about those talks. So that's fair enough. Obviously, they were obviously they're going to be losing a lot more, especially with the additional work. So that's fine. When it comes to the second question, when it comes to re-procuring in 2 or 3 years' time, and this is something I want to look at broadly moving forward as well. It's about procurement. So specifically around the auditors, obviously Big 4 are, other big, but are we restricted to the Big 4?
No.
Are there more, and specifically more locally based firms that can give it a large amount?
There may well be. What we would go through a formal tender process through the framework that we would be governed as a good government to appointing that would follow the normal framework. And if a local firm met the criteria, there's no reason why they couldn't be shortlisted part of the overall view. Because it tends to happen, if I'm being honest, albeit there are now a number of second-tier firms now coming into the market and offering their services. One being, they did at the time, yeah. So they were a second tier, they now attracting a lot of market. So 2 years time, there may be more in the market.
And the reason I asked that, there's a purpose to that, is that, there's a lot of money comes into Bradford through the CHNC. And the more that money that can be circulated to the local economy, the more it benefits the city as a procurement principle. I know that some organisations, like the Bradford Council, and in particular, many of the organisations, public sector organisations in Preston, have done a lot of work to review their procurement frameworks so that they can retain more of that national money locally as part of, as an economic decision to benefit the local economy. So that if you're getting electrical contractors, for instance, you look local rather than onto a large regional national firm. And the way that you score on the procurement framework is also looking at the potential of that money.
And when we do tend, we now we've introduced a sort of but just being mindful of this is such a heavily regulated environment.
I appreciate it.
All these, the national audit office and treasury, a lot of burden on. But I agree with this. But it's very not to stop us thinking about something like the charity of it, which is much smaller.
Stadium remind us of the value, the social value.
Yeah, that's I've got the phrase to get it.
Thank you.
I might say that. Some of our electrical support guys, they all have it's right brackets Bradford. So we do use local contractors in some of our estates work. Sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
John, I was grateful for your line of question, which just emphasised that Deloitte were acting lawfully and they said we don't want to continue with the +2. So I'm glad you raised that. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. So, colleagues, have you had the chance to ask any questions you would have wanted to do? Of course.
So when next time we tender, we will post our expectations on a particular website. We read this in the beginning. If there are what in the market, we're aware of it, there will be nothing stopping us saying, just to make you aware, we posted this end of the year. But we have to go through a very open process and this evaluation process. Stopping people, they can meet the criteria bidding, and maybe we can, if we got to the point where we were looking at two organisations, one was a big national one, using net to net, I would say, well, hang on.
So the next national requirements perhaps.
And maybe they were more expensive, but we might think that.
Thank you very much. Okay. Everybody's asked what they need to do. So may I point you to the recommendation? It's always uncomfortable, isn't it? It's from 70 to 170, of course, but I think the paper and Matthew's description does articulate well the environment that we're in here. The recommendation, please, is asking the council to approve the change in contract proposed with Deloitte. You consent to do that? Yes.
Given the interest expected, I'm expecting all the trip over these guys to be on the panel for the next 7 minutes. You might have got our chair the next morning.
Thanks for hanging about. Actually, that did spark some genuine interest into it, so some detail that was required. So,
it really does. I think about the multiple of that from 75,000 to 175,000. That still less in terms of proportion from gas cuts. So, I think that's just the world we're living in. So,
we'll not be that.
No. I think proportionally.
To be fair, given the additional detail requested, we can endorse that as unanimous approval of those payments. So, yeah. But thanks very much for holding on that. I appreciate it. Colleagues, are you okay to go to the final item? Yeah, which is item 6, which is the appointment of our Nominations and Remuneration Committee member So David has an interested party. We'll just ask David to leave the room a second, please. Thank you.
And I'll let things divide now, can I?
Anything you want.
Not this one. This was the.
So, so we'll turn to Laura and ask Laura to bring to our attention what we need to decide, please.
Thank you. So David's appointment to the information to the vacancy. Luke Jackie emailed out to join that meeting. David was the only best interest. So we're now asking that nomination information. They'll be concluded in 3 years or until
Like I say, from the chair's perspective, it's a good, diverse group that are on that team of government, of course. And I certainly feel very comfortable recommending David. That's not my position to do, so it's your decision. So, if anybody wants to ask any questions, of course, David has been on the certainly a while anyway. Yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, certainly as long as I've been here, 4 years now. So he knows his stuff. And of course, you therefore have the deputy chair, don't you, on the relationship committee. But you know, it's an important committee in terms of the requirements. Till April, yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, until the deputy chair decision. Yes, it's a big about it. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't prejudging anything there. Okay.
I'm happy to do it.
It does. Yeah. No, I mean that's fine. I'm happy to speak with anyone. The spirit of what Alistair McPherson did, shall I ask whether anybody objects to the proposal to?
No, but we all can't get it back too quickly.
No, let us know very informed about it.
I don't want to move, that is the only candidate in the team.
You stay. Okay, unanimously approved. Should we tell him? We'll ask him to come back in.
Yeah, there's a bit of a high.
Thank you very much for your courtesy there, David, and I'm pleased to tell you that it's unanimous approval. Please remain on the NRC. So. Right. Yeah, we did go to the vote, yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. So, unanimous support for both proposals. You know, they're not simple things, but they deserve a bit of attention. Thanks everybody for a long day's business, I know. Remain available to you for anything, of course. And otherwise, we meet properly in Council of Governors, open and closed on the 27th of April. But whoever can make it to the 2nd of February session, I think that'll be a good one. It'll be a cup of tea amongst friends. Let's have a talk and let's raise what's the roles, the various roles.
Where is it?
Is it our family? Oh, sorry, it's listening for this.
Yeah, listening for license.
Yeah, which is actually quite comfortable.
Fine.
Say the right day out. Thursday, the 2nd of February at 1 p.m. And it will finish at 3:30.
Any other business? I think today we.
Can I just make sure that people know about this first?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, it's next Thursday, Listening for Life Centre, which is entrance 5 at the BRI, and 1 o'clock till 3:30. Independent facilitation. Great opportunity for us to open up about the jury role.
I just want to know whether to.
We'll have to wait for. I will go to Marx's first. There will definitely be two. Let's go. Okay, so I think our Our government colleague from Leeds University just wanted to mention something briefly, please. So,
I think, sorry, this is probably after the COVID, but I believe today was possibly Hamlet's last governance meeting, because she's retiring at the end of March.
That's true.
Yeah, so I wonder whether, obviously, sorry, this is rather related, but we could obviously maybe thank Matt for going further.
it feels so long away there. Thank you for that. I got actually thought of that. Yes.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Too late. But she's been an absolute tremendous servant to the trust for over many, many years.
She could, just a one thought, just for 5 minutes. It was just like to express appreciation. The length of service you do. That'd be nice.
You don't need to say
So, yeah, we did create some badges for people that do it. It's kind of a thing at work at the moment, staff colleagues, very badges out there, and I think it's a good. Yeah, first let's see. Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, good point. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for your attendance. Hopefully, you thought the meetings will work well.
Yeah, this is the place we have. It's the place we
Yes, it is. Yes, yes. So everything will be. That's good. I mean, let's review that. Let's go on that. Yeah, I think it's good balance. It's a pretty good way to. Cheers. Well done, well done. Because I don't think they're much.
Right, it's
Just let's go.
next week.
See you, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh.
Cheers, Mark. Thank you. Thanks for holding on.
Oh, yeah.
You were very good.
It looked like you wrote the best.
Thanks, Mark. I completely forgot about you down there. Yeah, everybody's trailing off now. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, no, I got that, Jackie. I was holding on just to have a quick word with you because clearly we've done this and it's sort of developmental. The hardest thing, it's great. Sounds pretty good.
Was it?
It's quite hard. Yeah, I think your recording will be all right. It is quite hard to participate. So when Max was calling for votes and stuff like that, approval, clearly for the record, I was approving everything that he was asking for.
No, that's good.
But yeah, that was the only catch, I think. So
yeah, and I think for us, we are looking at hybrid facilities at the hospital, and so it'll be much better than this was. Kind of a bit of a patchy. But I'm glad it worked okay.
I suspect it will always be a minority interest because so many colleagues are local, aren't they? But
I know, but we have to be able to kind of give people equality of access, make it as good as we can do.
Yeah,
I mean, even in this room, actually, there were difficulties with the sound and the volume.
Okay.
So the things that we're going to have to look at, I think, kind of broadly. But the evaluation that's coming round, we're going to update that and include a bit, I think, on virtual meetings, just to get a sense of what people think and how things are working, because I think it's good to canvass, those views and so on.
being quite
So-
careful about what questions are asked. But there we go. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, we're going to have
Right.
to ask it. I think people have to be able to, do you know what I mean? I think, you know, kind of be able to say what they think. And we have to, you know, kind of get some hard evidence on that. So I'm going to shut down now. Thanks ever so
Bye-bye.
much for joining us.
No
And
worries.
see you later.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye. I'll just stop the recording. Stop recording.